what are the barriers to being able to innovate?
Mr. Blaine. Uh, that in itself is another big issue that I can say even I myself have been faced with. Sometimes it takes additional resources, time, like you mentioned, a little bit of deviation from the norms, and it is not necessarily well received. We're so structured, and it's almost like we're looking towards that test at the end. Is this going to affect how we will perform in the end? You know, I don't know. I may be wrong, but I feel like this is always the question.
Well, I would say that's definitely a part of the problem. I mean, at my last job, like one of the reasons I kind of burned out is because we moved away from there was a time when we were focused on helping students earn their GED. That was the metric that mattered. Did the student earn their GED? That's all we care about. But then the state started coming up with all of these metrics that weren't earning GEDs, that they decided if you meet these metrics, then the GED will be earned, so we don't have to measure that. The metrics were essentially irrelevant. The biggest metric that they worried about was the passer rate. And the passer rate, that's the number of students that had taken all four tests divided by the number of students that had earned a GED. So I can effectively get 100% passer rate by simply identifying those few students that are outliers, that all I need to do is put them down to take the test and they'll pass it. And for every other student out there that's going to really needs my help, I can give them 3 of the 4 tests. And as long as I never give them the 4th test, I maintain 100% passer rate. And that became our focus. All of a sudden, we were supposed to ignore these students over here. The best way to meet that passer rate is to just sort of, and if you're not testing these students, nobody questions it. Nobody cares because your passer rate's at 98%. There was a time, like in our best times, we were graduating probably 100 students a year. And when this whole passer rate debate came down the pipeline, we were lucky to hit 20 graduates in a year. And nobody questioned that drop. Nobody was upset about that drop. Everybody was happy because we got the passer rate. And so I got to the point where I'm like, I can't do this anymore. It's a waste of time. We're not helping anybody. The students that are earning GEDs are students that would do it with or without us. And the students that really need us are being left out in the cold because they might hurt our numbers, so we can't dare give them a chance.
Yeah. Um, as it relates to the innovation and the barriers that you spoke of, I mean, we've had cases where we have organized groups, you know, and teachers share their innovative ideas and so on. And the expectation is that it will be well received, you know, and maybe the idea would be upscaled and so on. But I don't know, maybe lack of resources, maybe maybe we see merit in it in our little classrooms, but then administrators, policymakers, whoever else, maybe they don't. I really don't know exactly what the problem is, but a lot of the times when we come up with our innovative ideas, you would find that we would have to find a way to fund it, you know, to get the resources and to do whatever. And then and we go ahead and we do it because we see the merit in it. There's satisfaction in coming up with something and seeing that it is benefiting the students. So we don't necessarily wait, you know, for those in authority to do it. But what's about when we have the brilliant ideas and we don't have the funds to really get the resources and whatever? What happens? It just dies out. I mean, we do our little bit, you know, but there's only so much that you can do on your own.
Well, that's exactly it. When you're on the front lines, you're making the innovations. But if the people above you aren't offering support for those, then those innovations die because you can't fund it yourself if the money is not there. Or, you said like you would meet in groups and come up with ideas. Is your administration giving you time to meet in groups? Because if you're not being given that time, that becomes a problem.
And it's all of these things too. It's all of these things too. Sometimes administration has its own ideas. Sometimes administration has its own ideas, and you as the classroom teacher, I mean, you are on the ground and may not necessarily think that this would be the best thing, maybe at that point in time. Not that the idea may be a bad one entirely, but it may not be appropriate at the time, or, and you may have the situation where if it's not the idea of the administration, then it is not really pushed. They don't really see, the value in it and so on. So it will die right there. Unless you take it up on your own, then that's just what it's going to be. Just an idea.
No, and that's it. That's the unfortunate truth, is that there are too many leaders out there that feel like either they feel like their job is to elevate themselves or their own successes, or they're so focused on like this narrow measurement of success that anything that exists outside that narrow measurement is seen as a distraction to what we need to be doing. Have you ever heard of the book Who Moved My Cheese?
No.
Okay, so it's like a little leadership fable. And the basic idea of this fable is that the world's always changing. There's this saying out there, adapt or die. And so you've always got to be looking for the next change. Blockbuster? Okay, so Blockbuster comes around in the 1980s, and they're a movie rental business. And they survive for about 30 years. Netflix comes along, and Netflix makes it easier to rent movies. 10 years later, Blockbuster doesn't even exist anymore, and Netflix is now $1 billion company.